Good afternoon. I'm Captain Sean Tortora. Thank you for joining us for today's National Maritime Day celebration. It is now my honor to introduce the Superintendent of the United States Merchant Marine Academy, Vice Admiral Jack Bono.
Thank you, Captain. Good morning. Welcome to the United States Merchant Marine Academy's virtual celebration of the day that celebrates the U.S. maritime industry and U.S. merchant mariners. Allow me to be the first to wish you a happy National Maritime Day. This year, the Academy joins the Maritime Administration in celebrating seafarers at the core of America's maritime shipping future. As the only federal service academy dedicated to educating and graduating licensed officers to serve in the U.S. Merchant Marine and in the military, we are proud of our alumni who have served and our midshipmen who have made the commitment to serve. On National Maritime Day, we remember with eternal gratitude the more than 9,300 American mariners who gave their lives in World War II while serving on merchant ships, including our own 142 cadet midshipmen, whose memory we honor with the battle standard. Our program today will include the interim regimental commander, Midshipman Second Class Christopher Mars, reading a presidential proclamation. Then the youngest midshipman in the regiment, Midshipman Fourth Class Roxanne McKell, will join me in paying tribute to those who have lost by laying a wreath at the base of the War Memorial. Afterward, we will present a panel discussion that includes 4 distinguished mariners who will discuss their experiences and the importance of their many years of service. It's an interesting and unique virtual celebration we hope you will enjoy. Thank you for joining us for National Maritime Day at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, ACTA, non verba.
Now I would like to introduce our interim regimental commander, Midshipman Christopher Mars, who will read the National Maritime Day Presidential Proclamation from 1944, the first proclamation after the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy was dedicated. Midshipman Mars.
A proclamation. Whereas the Congress, by a joint resolution, approved May 20th, 1933, designated May 22nd of each year as National Maritime Day, in commemoration of the sailing from Savannah, Georgia, on May 22nd, 1819, of the Savannah, the first steam-propelled vessel to cross the Atlantic, and requested the President to issue annually a proclamation calling upon the people of the United States to observe that day. And whereas the Congress, in the Merchant Marine Act of 1936, approved June 29th, 1936, has declared it to be policy of the United States to foster and encourage the development and maintenance of a merchant marine. A, sufficient to carry its domestic waterborne commerce and a substantial portion of the waterborne export and import foreign commerce of the United States, and to provide shipping service on all routes essential for maintaining the flow of such domestic and foreign waterborne commerce at all times. B, capable of serving as a naval and military auxiliary in time of war or national emergency. C, owned and operated under the United States flag by citizens of the United States, insofar as may be practicable. And D, composed of the best equipped, safest, and most suitable types of vessels constructed in the United States, and manned with a trained and efficient citizen personnel. And whereas many thousands of American men and women have toiled through long hours in shipyards and factories in order to construct, in the shortest possible time, the fleet of vessels needed to carry out not only the long-range program envisioned in the Merchant Marine Act of 1936, but also the emergency program necessitated by the global war in which we are involved. And whereas many men have already given their lives and thousands of others are daily risking their lives on our ships, traversing dangerous seas to carry men and materials to the far-flung battlefields, and whereas it is fitting that patriotism, courage, sacrifice, and labor of these men and women ashore and afloat be publicly recognized. Now, therefore, I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States of America, do hereby call upon the people of the United States to observe May 22nd, 1944 as National Maritime Day by displaying the flag at their homes or other suitable places, and I direct that the flag be displayed on all government buildings on that day. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the United States of America to be fixed. Done at the city of Washington, this 25th day of April, in the year of our Lord, 1944, and the independence of the United States of America, the 168th, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Reason, order. Peace. Lord. Lord. Ready. Aim. Fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Ready. Aim. Fire. Forward. Forward.
Welcome to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy's National Maritime Day panel discussion. I am Captain Sean Tortora, and today we will be speaking with 4 distinguished U.S. Merchant Marine officers. Our first guest is retired Captain Bill Sembler, PhD, U.S. Maritime Service, Chief Engineer and Professor Emeritus at the Department of Marine Engineering. Captain Sembler is a 1975 graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point in the dual license program of Marine Engineering and Marine Transportation. In addition to holding dual licenses as Chief Engineer of vessels of any horsepower and third mate of unlimited tonnage vessels, he holds a master's degree in mechanical engineering from Stevens Institute, as well as a doctorate in mechanical engineering from NYU Polytech Institute. Captain Sembler is also a licensed professional engineer. Upon retiring from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy after 22 years of service, Captain Sembler served as Vice President of Engineering at Coffin Turbo Pump Incorporated and is currently the company's principal engineer. Our second guest is Commander Emily Gardner, United States Maritime Service. Commander Gardner is a 2006 graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point with a degree in marine engineering. She holds a first assistant engineer of vessels of any horsepower license and is currently working toward her master's degree in technology management. Commander Gardner worked at Autonomous and Controls Company as a junior system integrator. She followed by sailing on her engineering license for 10 years, finishing out her seagoing career in the Staten Island Ferry. Commander Gardner is currently assistant professor in the Marine Engineering Department. Our third guest is Lieutenant Andrew Baranski, United States Navy. Lieutenant Baranski is a 2014 graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point with a degree in marine transportation. He holds a second mate of unlimited tonnage license and sailed for 3 years following graduation. In 2017, he was activated by the Navy to serve on campus as the Sea Year Liaison in the Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office. Lieutenant Baranski is heavily involved in revamping a campus culture of respect and fostering diversity and inclusion amongst the Kings Point community. Our fourth and final guest is retired Captain George Sandberg, United States Maritime Service, Master Mariner and Professor Emeritus in the Department of Marine Transportation. Captain Sandberg is a 1966 graduate of State University of New York Maritime College at Fort Schuyler with a degree in meteorology and oceanography. In addition to his Master of Vessels of Unlimited Tonnage license, Captain Sandberg holds a master's degree in applied science from State University of New York at Stony Brook. Captain Sandberg sailed for 20 years as a deck officer and master. He joined the faculty at Kings Point in 1990, and during his 20-year tenure, he served as chair, Department of Marine Transportation for 10 years. Since retiring in 2011, Captain Sandberg continues to be very much involved in maritime education as well as consulting. He has received several industry awards for his continuing research and work with the cutting-edge technology in the maritime industry. I am sure both Commander Gardner and Lieutenant Baranski would agree with me that the senior members of our panel possess such a vast amount of maritime knowledge and expertise. If printed, it could fill the shelves of the library. I would now like to introduce our first question. It'll be Midshipman First Class Hercules will be asking the first question to Captain Sembler. Midshipman Hercules.
Hello, Captain Sembler. I would like to ask you what National Maritime Day means to you, and why is bringing attention to the industry important?
All right, well, first, let me say I just want to thank you for inviting me to be a member of this panel. And let me address the second part of your question first. Why is Maritime Day important? We're essentially a maritime nation. The majority of the goods that are imported to the United States and the largest percentage of exports are carried by ships. And if you look at the amount of coastline that this country has, that makes a lot of sense. So everyone in this country depends on the maritime industry for delivering goods and exporting goods. And in addition to that, if you look at the associated employment, dock workers, people that drive the trucks that deliver the goods that the ships unload. I mean, it's a huge economic benefit to the United States that really affects the whole country. And additionally, in times of war, it's the maritime industry that delivers the goods for the military. So everybody in this country should be aware of the contribution that the maritime industry makes. And, unfortunately, I think to some people, the only exposure they have to the industry is when there's a problem. This recent incident, for example, in the Suez Canal, or if there's a collision or an incident on a cruise ship, that gets played up. And some people may have the impression that this is an industry beset with problems, but nothing could be further from the truth. There's over 62,000 port calls a year in the United States, and the overwhelming majority of those are without incident. And that's because of the dedication and the level of training and education that merchant mariners have. So everybody should be aware of that. And, this gives us and the country an opportunity to be exposed to that. Also, I think it's significant, the date of Maritime Day, May 20th, that commemorates the sailing of the Savannah, which was the first transoceanic voyage in 1819. And the connection to the Academy, in addition to the fact that we train and educate merchant mariners, Captain Moses Rogers, who was the captain of the Savannah, was also instrumental in building the ship, is the namesake of our own Rogers Hall. So the Academy has a connection. In addition to that, the nuclear Savannah, a lot of the crew members for that were trained at Kings Point. So Kings Point certainly has a direct connection to the origins of Maritime Day. As far as myself personally, my father was a merchant mariner. He started sailing right out of high school during World War II, raised his license to a master mariner, and taught for many years at SUNY Maritime College. So I was actually exposed to the maritime industry at a very young age. And I have always been interested in ships, and especially the technology that goes into building and operating them. And I've been privileged, I think, Kings Point gave me an excellent foundation for participating in that industry. And I've had a pretty varied career. I've taught marine engineering, I've sailed, I've worked shoreside as an engineer in marine companies. And it's really the foundation that I had at Kings Point that's enabled me to do that. And it's interesting, just as a side note, the first company I worked for shoreside, Worthington Pump, I used to always love to tell my students, Henry Worthington invented the steam pump in 1840, but the thing that's even more significant is that was originally developed as a shipboard main feed pump. So, that company had a connection to the maritime industry. And the company I work for now, Coffin, anybody that sailed on a steamship, I realize that there aren't that many around now, but those, when they were around, probably 95% had Coffin feed pumps. So even my shoreside work has always been with companies that had a connection to the maritime industry. And I think, as I said, I know a lot of my friends and a lot of other individuals, there's always a perception that what you study in college is not important because it's not really going to have very much to do with your career. But I think Kings Pointers are lucky because you're getting an education that will enable you to use what you learn in your career. And certainly, I would say almost every day I use things I learned at Kings Point. And I think the other significant fact is that the foundation that you'll receive, and I know this from firsthand, enable me to go on and earn higher degrees and advance in the career. And this is a field that's always changing. And I was a midshipman, predominant ships with steam, that evolved into diesel vessels. Now we're looking at ships with dual fuel engines that burn LNG. Down the road, we're probably likely to see perhaps more gas turbines or maybe even fuel cells. So you've always got to keep learning because things are always changing. That's certainly one of the things that's interested me and kept me involved in this industry throughout my career. And, just to repeat, Kings Point gave me the foundation that's enabled me to do that.
Thank you, Captain Sembler and Midshipman Hercules. Now I would like to introduce First Class Midshipman Anastasia Segoyashin, who will now ask the next question to Commander Gardner. Midshipman Segoyashin.
Thank you, Captain Tortora. Commander Gardner, my question for you was, what was your favorite experience from your seagoing career?
For me, it's more of a general answer. It's the feeling of satisfaction. So when I take a piece of equipment apart and put it back together and then it works, it's just such a good feeling. You spend all this time learning, gaining knowledge at Kings Point as a student, as a cadet. And then even when you get your license and you start working out there, you're just gaining all this knowledge, and it's just that feeling when it clicks and it all kind of comes together. It's just a powerful feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment that it's when you're troubleshooting something and it's just kind of feels defeating to you, and then you figure out what to do. And I've been busted in the engine room. You have your earmuffs saying you don't hear someone behind you, and I'm struggling with this purifier that's finicky and hasn't been working, and I've been working on it for days, and finally I get it going, and I just throw my hands in the air and I turn around and someone's standing right there. It's just but really it's that feeling of accomplishment, and being able to prove myself to myself, but also to the men around me, especially as a woman in the field. I just, for me, it's just been that general feeling of being proud of myself regularly. Obviously things don't always go your way, but when something does and something clicks of, okay, I know what to do here, and then it works and you fix it and you get it going, it just feels really good. And then I kind of had another answer to that, which was I spent a long time, years, working the midnight to noon watch. And just about every morning, middle of my watch, I'd get a cup of coffee and I'd go out on the back deck and watch the sunrise. And it's just something that had never gotten old, just something I always appreciated. And it was like my favorite part of the day, just sipping that coffee on the back deck, and wherever I was, at anchor, underway, whatever the weather was, it was just something that I always appreciated and kind of held on to.
Well, thank you, Commander Gardner and Midshipman Segoitian. Now I would like to introduce Midshipman Martin Hunley-Boda, who will ask the next question for Lieutenant Baranski. Midshipman Hunley-Boda.
Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Baranski, if you could change one thing about the maritime industry, what would it be?
Shipman Hunley-Boda, that's an excellent question. And anybody who knows me knows that that's too loaded for me to stick to just one thing. There's way too much upward potential in our merchant marine to just point out one thing, but I'm going to do my best to keep it pretty centered here in my answer. Making the merchant marine better, first and foremost, it's focusing on our mariners. I think that during this COVID-19 pandemic, we saw something exacerbate, and it was the mental health of our mariners. Before the pandemic set in, we were already striking a very delicate balance of mariners being able to enjoy the profession, but being stressed out. And then all of a sudden, the effects of isolation and fatigue just compounded when COVID-19 set in and ports closed. Ships started doing gangway up orders. And depending on what C-split our midshipmen with us here tonight are on, they've experienced part of this, and you saw it firsthand. So I think first and foremost, it's realizing that our mariners out there need more mental health resources in our sailing profession. Secondly, it goes along hand in hand with the health of our mariners. It's allowing companies to be a little more flexible in what they allow their employees to do when they're on board the vessel to relieve stress and really promote a healthy living style. During SEER lecture, something that I mentioned to you multiple times was find a healthy way to relieve your stress, whether it was writing poetry, playing an instrument, working out. Companies need to provide that time. And I don't care if it's in the working hour or beyond, but companies really need to reinforce that notion of take time for yourself to recharge. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I know when I was working in the field, we were working 12 hours a day. I was up from 7 in the morning till 1 in the morning, very consistently. And I really had to go and push myself to find that hour to get to the gym, to play piano, to read a book. And I felt like I was really using my own personal time when it really should have been provided me. So the first thing I do to make the industry better is really focus on the mariner, get mental health resources, and allow mariners to focus on just being healthier in general. Second, green energy. It's got to come. We need to focus in on sustainability, and we can't slack off in this. The lifespan of a ship is 20 to 30 years. We know that. So the technology that's coming out now will be around for the next 30 years. That ship's going to keep sailing. As the world develops and evolves, the maritime industry is going to become larger and more expansive, and it's going to require more ships to carry cargo around. So we really need to invest right now in innovation. Third, cybersecurity and autonomous technology. We're seeing it play out right now with this cyber attack that just happened on the pipeline. That's going to carry into the maritime industry in some way, shape, or form. We have to step up our game and our understanding of cybersecurity, keeping our ships safe, and really start looking into integrating autonomous technology because it is coming. It's coming down the pipeline. They're using it over in Europe already. It's going to hit our industry, and we need to know how to deal with cyber crimes and cyber criminal activity to keep our maritime industry secure. It's too important. Also, along the lines of autonomous technology, it is going to come, and it's going to come quickly. I believe within the next decade, parts of the maritime industry will be integrated with autonomous technology, and we don't want to see mariners' jobs disappear. We would rather see companies taking effective, preemptive steps in upskilling mariners so that they can maintain their jobs in the profession. So that's the third piece. Fourth piece, expand the United States maritime shipping fleet. It has been diminishing for far too long. Every year we have thousands of graduates who are graduating with third mate's licenses and third engineer's licenses, and the job market has become consistently leaner over the years. As Captain Sembler mentioned, it's too important. It's for the economic and the defense needs of our nation. We need a strong maritime fleet to sustain the American lifestyle, to maintain our presence in the world. So, Midshipman Hunley Boda, to lay it out simply, focus on the mariners, focus on green energy and sustainability, focus on cybersecurity and autonomous technology, and focus on expanding the maritime fleet. If we can do those four things effectively, we will have a strong United States maritime industry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lieutenant Bransky, and thank you, Midshipman Hunley Boda. Now I'd like to introduce Midshipman Sarah Sires, who will now ask the final question to Captain Sandberg. Midshipman Sires.
Thank you, sir. Captain Sandberg, thank you so much for joining us. My question for you is if you could give one piece of advice or one recommendation to midshipmen here at the Academy right now, what would it be?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me to participate in this session. In retirement, I would stop by Kings Point at least once a month, but of course with COVID, that wasn't happening, so I've missed that. So even though it's virtual, I'm glad to be back here at the Academy. The question that you asked, one piece of advice or one recommendation, I find that to be a little bit difficult to answer because people that know me know I'm always giving advice, and I thought about it for a long time. The first thing that came in mind was an article that I wrote for Lover's Line years ago, and it was a series of, it was advice to midshipmen going to sea for the first time. It was based on how I saw midshipmen failed at sea, or not failed their projects, but failed in having a good sea year because they made some mistakes. But then I thought that's not what they really want. They're first-classmen, they're getting ready to graduate. They want some advice on the future. And two things came in mind that I always gave first-classmen. Number one, you're going to be looking for jobs. Every one of you will get good jobs. And remember that your first job is not your last job. And secondly, you think about experience. Don't necessarily go for the easiest job. Don't necessarily go for the job that pays the most. Go for the job that gives you the most experience. If you get that experience under your belt, the other two factors will fall in line at a later date. But I still haven't gotten to one single recommendation. So I had to think some more, and I got thinking about competence. And I have a formula for competence. And the formula for competence is knowledge plus skill in parentheses times attitude. This is something that I see you smiling on your face there, so I think you might have seen that in maybe in the BRM course, if you've taken that. So my advice, a single piece of advice, is to keep a good attitude in whatever you do. If you have a positive attitude, it's a multiplier. It's going to multiply your skill. It's going to multiply your knowledge. So I came down to that one simple word, or a couple of words: keep a good attitude in everything that you do. To be successful at anything, and at anything doesn't necessarily have to be the maritime industry. There are two components that you have to have. Number one, you have to have you have to be able to work hard. Whatever it is, you have to work hard, but even more important is you have to have a real desire. You have to have a passion for what you do. If you have a passion for the maritime industry, if you're willing to work hard, you're going to be a successful mariner. So that's attitude, and keep a passion for your industry.
Thank you, Captain Sandberg and Midshipman Sires. That concludes our National Maritime Day panel discussion. I would like to thank again our distinguished guests and our midshipmen for their participation. And I would like to thank all the viewers for joining us as we observe this very important day for our industry. Thank you and have a happy National Maritime Day.